Just imagine your startup is really starting to take off. Your lead engine is regularly finding and engaging qualified leads. Your sales engine is converting those qualified leads to paying customers at breakneck pace. But you're struggling to meet demand as your production engine isn't able to keep up, and what you do deliver doesn't always live up to what you sold your customer. And you're starting to see more and more negative reviews of your product or service, which could wipe out all of your hard work and starting to make investors nervous. What do you do now? In this episode, we're going to discuss the best method for building a production and delivery engine that can consistently fulfill your customers' expectations and generate viral growth while reducing your production and delivery costs over time, and we'll cover a whole lot more. I'm Stephen White, and this is Building Lean. Hey there, awesome founders. Welcome back once again to Building Lean, our series of workshops that cover the steps and activities your startup must take to build key business functions to sustainably generate revenues. If you're interested in growing your startup by building lean, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and click that notification bell nearby so you can receive the latest insights that will help you avoid mistakes that cost you time and money. Now, let's get to why you're here. This episode continues our dive into the activities and milestones you need to complete in order to successfully achieve the second startup phase of repeatable sales and delivery. Once again, as a quick refresher of repeatable sales and delivery, that means the ability to repeatably sell, produce, and deliver your product while satisfying a growing number of customers as you solve the compelling problem they similarly experience. In other words, this phase is about automating your key business activities in preparation for scaled growth, all while not losing focus on serving your customers' needs. Now, during our last episode, I covered the process of building a sales engine that can regularly convert your qualified leads into paying customers, which will enable you to ensure you are generating sufficient margins to eventually achieve profitability. During this episode, we're focused on the process of building a production and delivery engine that can regularly produce your product or service and deliver it to your customers. Now, in case you're thinking, wait, why am I going to watch this video? This seems like a complete waste of time for me because I don't actually produce or deliver my product. This must be for physical products or in-person services. Shoot, my startup actually provides an online web application, which means every customer uses the same instance of the software, app, or platform. Okay, fair point. While you are correct to a certain extent, let me share this thought before you jump out of this video and go watch some cat videos. Remember, no software is ever complete or bug-free. Think about it this way. Every digital tool, software, app, or service requires changes, updates, or new features. Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, YouTube will each push a half dozen fixes today to their service or platform, and you don't even know this as a customer, as those changes that you do recognize only occur through app updates as you're unfamiliar with changes to their platform or backend. Also, this is true even for physical products that contain some digital component due to the ability to push over-the-air updates or your user's ability to download a firmware change. Not only do customers expect it, you're at a competitive disadvantage if you haven't engineered or an ability to keep your solution current. Everything from Teslas to podcasting equipment are being designed around an efficient production and delivery engine. So when I say produce, what I mean is the update and maintenance cycle of software. And when I talk about delivery, what we mean is the implementation required to start using the software for the very first time, as well as any data or user training changes for each new update. I bring that up just to anchor you if you think production delivery doesn't apply to a web application or app or some other software-based tool. Oh, and by the way, the challenge you face only gets more complicated when you have more complex products that serve a variety of industries and customers. So regardless if your startup is focused on digital or physical product or service, by being able to consistently produce and deliver your solution, you can ensure high product quality. And even better, by consistently producing your product or service, you can optimize the user experience to drive up production and adoption rates. Okay, now what do we actually mean when we talk about our production and delivery engine? As in, what makes up that engine? Well, with similar components to your lead engine and sales engine, we view the production and delivery engine in the same conceptual framework. Specifically, as entrepreneurs, an engine consists of some automated process, an instrumentation panel that helps you monitor the performance of the process, and controls that help you manage the operations of an engine. For the third milestone of the repeatable sales and delivery startup development phase, we need to build a production and delivery engine. So let's look at the components of our production and delivery engine in detail right now. The production and delivery engine consists of three elements. Number one, the production and delivery process, which is guided by the user's product adoption journey. Number two, the instrumentation, which are the KPIs that help you measure unit production volume and cost, as well as customer satisfaction and adoption. And number three, the controls, which are the forecasted number of unit sales, your production capacity, and the capital spending required to increase production capacity. So now let's look at each component in detail, starting with the process. As a quick reminder, there are many benefits to following a process as it enables your startup to, number one, onboard new staff easily and fast. Number two, create a common understanding among team members that results in better coordination of work between team resources. And number three, it helps you find and fix issues at critical points in the process more quickly. So in a few moments, I'll cover the tools that can help you build an optimal process that is easy for you and your team to understand and implement within your startup. Now, the purpose of following a production and delivery process is to ensure consistent production and delivery of your product or service to your customers. Without implementing the production and delivery process, you'll consistently miss revenue goals, frustrate your customers when they use your solution, and lose any brand value that you've created. Since the production and delivery engine has 4 distinct sub-processes, the instrumentation consists of 8 KPIs. So in a moment, I'll show you how each component maps to the appropriate sub-process because I don't want to overwhelm you. Oh, by the way, depending on your product or service, you may adopt additional KPIs that help you identify specific bottlenecks in the production process or even the delivery process. So let's get started with the 2 KPIs related to the production plan, which are your number one, your unit cost trend, which enables you to validate your cost reduction hypothesis, and number 2, your unit volume trend, which helps you validate your production volume hypothesis. The next 2 KPIs relate to your production process itself, which are number 1, your unit production trend, which helps you ensures you can grow your production capacity. And number 2, your production defect rate trend, which will allow you to measure product quality resulting from the production line before it's packaged and shipped to the customer. The next set of KPIs relate to your delivery process, which are number 1, your unit delivery cost trend, which enables you to validate your cost reduction hypothesis. Number 2, your missed on-time delivery rate trend, which tracks your ability to deliver your product units or finished goods to your paying customer within the promised time frame. And finally, the last 2 KPIs relate to your solution adoption process, which are number 1, your product rating trend, which measures how your customer values your solution after first use, and number 2, your percentage of orders reviewed, which determines customer satisfaction and passion related to your product or service. Now, don't worry if you didn't catch all of these, as I'm going to go through each one more in depth as we review the activities to each of these through the milestones. Okay, the controls available to you for managing the speed of your production delivery engine are as follows. They're pretty simple. Number 1, your unit sales demand forecast. What this means is that you have a lead engine and sales engine that's working efficiently so you can forecast how many units your production delivery engine will need to produce so as to meet demand. And number 2, your production and delivery capacity. Well, again, this is self-evident. This means that you have access to production and or delivery capacity, which enables you to generate enough supply to match customer demand. And finally, number 3, capital spending. Again, self-evident. This means that you have the funding resources to adjust production capacity based on your sales demand forecast. Now, before we dive into the activities we recommend to build your production and delivery engine, let's take a moment to consider a common alternative approach many entrepreneurs follow related to producing and delivering their solution. The most common alternative approach we encounter comes from entrepreneurs who tell us the following. Hey, Shafiq, Steven, guys, why should we bother with working out how to produce and deliver our own solution when we just found this terrific manufacturing partner and they have it all under control? Plus, we sell our products through Amazon, so we don't need to worry about any delivery and product adoption issues. Sure, why not, right? Lots of companies outsource some part of their business, so why shouldn't you do the same? I mean, do you really need to be masters in all of your domains? I mean, that doesn't seem super efficient, so this question seems completely reasonable. A few of you may even be nodding along because you've thought of the same question yourself. Well, here's the reason why outsourcing doesn't work when building your production delivery engine. First, you have to work out an efficient manufacturing process. Otherwise, your ability to negotiate pricing will be severely limited due to waste and poor cost insight. For example, you won't be able to question why a producer or manufacturer is estimating that your finished goods cost 3 times higher than materials cost. Also, if your manufacturing partner captures all the margin, you'll be left with little or no margin to run the business. Secondly, when it comes to the delivery side, for physical goods, many of the issues can be handled working with a logistics partner. Now, this is not true for digital or software products. You must repeatedly perform enough implementations to ensure you understand the pitfalls associated with customer adoption during the delivery step. Leaving this step to your implementation partners from the beginning is a recipe for disaster, as you become removed from observing and understanding the issues your customers are facing during a critical early phase of your startup. If you're not sure if this is true, let's look at a case study of a very famous startup that nearly failed. Now, normally when we examine case studies, we like to look at those that actually did fail because more publicly available information exists to analyze and understand the mistakes made. In this case, we're fortunate to have a founder who's unusually transparent about the struggles being experienced in real time, as well as the fixes that had to be made. For this case study, let's talk about my favorite founder, Elon Musk, and Tesla's production and delivery engine related to the Model 3. On March 31st, 2016, Elon introduced Tesla's first production electric vehicle, targeting the masses with an estimated price range of $35,000 to $50,000. Pre-ordering was opened immediately with the goal of the first cars being delivered in early 2017. Within a couple days, nearly 500,000 customers had placed a $1,000 refundable pre-order deposit, and Tesla knew it had a runaway hit on its hands. Think about it. Lead engine check, sales engine check, production and delivery engine. Prior to the Model 3 announcement, Tesla had produced approximately 65,000 cars over its 5-year history since the launch of the Model S in 2012. That's nearly 1/10 of the 500,000 pre-orders that occurred within 2 weeks of the Model 3's announcements. However, Elon had a plan to ramp up production to a level Tesla had never achieved. He'd use a highly automated production line compared to the much more manual production process that had existed with the Model S and the X at that point. This is where the challenges begun. While Tesla had a technically sophisticated team, and electric vehicles have substantially fewer parts compared to a traditional industrial internal combustion engine based car, Tesla had not previously implemented an automated production line to the extent required to meet Model 3 demand. Not only did Tesla need to acquire and install the automation equipment, it had to make runs through the production process to ensure production quality and remove unnecessary complexity. As Elon tweeted, Tesla was in production hell. All of this was occurring under the bright spotlight of media scrutiny, along with the pressure that comes from being a public company, which happened to be the most shorted stock, meaning loads and loads of active investors were betting against the company and gleefully spreading rumors as they hoped the company would fail. Effectively speaking, these short sellers were Tesla's indirect competitors who wanted to drive customers away to other brands. But that's not all. Once Tesla started to solve its production problem, a new problem surfaced that still had to be addressed: delivery. Or more specifically, as Elon said, we've gone from production hell to delivery logistics hell. Whether you're delivering a digital solution that requires a ramp up in servers so that your users can have an uninterrupted experience, or a physical product that has to be shipped to your customers before they can enjoy their purchase, delivery is an easily overlooked challenge for a new product team. Tesla had thousands upon thousands of vehicles coming off the production line in Fremont, California that had to be delivered to individual customers across the country. And once again, the shorts were more than happy to cause trouble by alleging that many Tesla pre-orders had been canceled and these brand new Model 3s were being held to cover up for plummeting customer demand. Now, all of this was not true, but the short sellers hoped they would scare off existing pre-orders and future buyers so that the company would fail. With all of this pressure to satisfy customer demand to repeatedly produce and deliver a product that they had never built before, what would you expect Elon Musk to do to manage customer expectations and keep his team motivated to achieve the critical goal of a proven production and delivery engine? When it comes to building a production and delivery engine for your product or service, you need to have a plan in place to measure whether you're on track with hitting your goal or not. To measure your progress, we use a technique called OKR, which stands for Objective and Key Results. And it's a framework for setting and measuring goals as well as the results of the activities to achieve them. For this third milestone of production and delivery engine built, we've designed a 60-day OKR that keeps you focused on completing the activities necessary to finish the milestone within 2 months. The key results correspond directly with your progress on the underlying work plan. So let's review what your execution cycle should be. Since we've already done all the hard work by building a project guide, I'll use this as a reference point for this episode. Now, the key aspect is, as you begin each activity, you need to plan your work so that it can be completed in manageable, bite-sized chunks. This prevents the feeling of being overwhelmed in the work ahead or discouraged when you encounter a small setback. Once you've made your activity plan, then using the framework, tools, and process guides that I'm about to cover, you'll work on each activity in an orderly manner, which will keep you focused and on target. After completing all the activities for a given milestone, you need to schedule time to review your results with an advisor. Your advisor can help you with a fresh pair of eyes to quickly analyze whether you've correctly built your production and delivery engine or not. In this last step of your execution cycle, you need to evaluate whether your idea suffers from a fatal flaw related to your product assumption. If you have advisors who are well-versed in lean methodologies, then they should be able to help you perform this analysis. And if not, you can contact myself or Shafiq for help with this. By the way, it may seem redundant to perform a fatal flaw analysis during the second startup phase related to your product assumption when you already performed this during market validation. Well, as we learned with Elon and Tesla, this fatal flaw analysis is focused on the automation aspect of your product assumption, which is something you weren't concerned with before as your previous activities were manual in nature. Okay, now that you understand how to proceed using a project guide, let's quickly look at the detailed activities for repeatable sales and deliveries third milestone, production and delivery engine built. To successfully achieve the production and delivery engine built milestone, you'll complete the following 4 activities. Once again, let's look at each activity in detail. The first activity is about defining your production and delivery process, which helps you set up a consistent method for producing and delivering your product while improving product quality, leading to higher product adoption. There are 4 deliverables you need to accomplish that effectively represent sub-processes. The first deliverable is to define the planning process. The planning process consists of 5 key steps. Now, Shafiq and I are often asked, why do I need to plan? I have digital products. Whether you're in the news publishing business or have your own YouTube channel or make software apps, you need to plan your production schedule. The process for digital products starts by thinking about the frequency of publishing new versions as well as the amount of changes you'll introduce in each new version. Take as an example, on CNN.com, they publish their content every hour and can introduce breaking news off cycle. Microsoft, on the other hand, updates their OS every month and sometimes several times if there are security issues that require urgent fixes. Therefore, planning the change process of digital content is no different than planning to produce physical products. For physical products, you start by determining if you're going to choose a direct or indirect production model. For the direct model, you need to execute the following 5 steps. Number 1, you'll identify your batch production costs, as in labor and materials. This will also include identifying vendors for sourcing raw materials. Number 2, you'll identify your raw material lead times. Number 3, you'll develop your capital investment budget per unit of capacity. Number 4, you're using your testing unit selling price from your sales engine. You'll calculate the product margin per unit by subtracting your unit cost from unit selling price. And number 5, in the last step of planning, you'll develop a cost and time reduction strategy on a unit production basis. In the early part of planning, you'll want to develop these strategies before each production run and implement them during the next the next batch run to determine if your strategy provides you the results you hypothesize. For the indirect model, you'll execute 4 key steps. Number 1, you'll solicit bids for manufacturing partners and determine a minimum batch size as well as any unit volume discounts. Number 2, you'll determine the minimum production batch size and lead times, which help you determine the working capital required. Number 3, using your tested unit selling price, you can calculate the product margin per unit by subtracting your unit costs from your unit selling price. And number 4, in the last step of planning, you'll develop a cost and time reduction strategy on a per unit of production basis. Once again, in the early part of planning, even using an indirect model, you'll want to develop strategies before each production run and implement them during the next batch run to determine if your strategy provides you the results you hypothesize. Now, the second deliverable is to define your production process. The production process consists of itself of 4 steps. The first step is to define the unit production steps with an appropriate quality assurance method or QA at each step. Some of you may be familiar with how to define the steps of production and may be wondering why you need to QA, perform quality assurance after each step. Well, it's pretty easy. If you don't ensure that each step is completed correctly, then the future steps will likely fail depending on the interdependency between the steps. Even if there's no dependency, your final product has a high likelihood of failure without incorporating a QA process to validate the production quality. By testing each step, you're able to quickly eliminate cascading issues as well as the ability to find the root cause of issues when you detect a quality issue at the end of production. The second step is when you define production packaging requirements. This is where you have to worry about compliance issues for labeling as well as ensuring that your customer finds it easy to understand how to use your product. So for example, did you know that when Tesla shipped its first cars to China, they had to sit in a port because they had the wrong sticker on them for compliance purposes? Tesla literally had to fly someone out back to China with the right sticker and then manually replace each one before the port authority would release the cars for delivery. And by the way, this is all the while that's cash flow tied up in inventory and revenue that can't be recognized while a simple sticker issue gets solved. Now, one other thing to remember is that it's important to include inserts in your product, which helps support the sales process. This can include requests for reviews and referrals because actually asking for reviews will help support your organic growth. Customers won't necessarily take that action without your prompting. You have to recognize that within them. The third step is when you define the post-production QA process. Once again, it's extremely important to have defined the post-production QA process before beginning. In this step, you're ensuring that you can find any defects in your product before your customer finds them. The cost of delivering a defective product is disproportionately high in terms of loss of reputation and erosion of margin. Think of this as a consumer yourself. You kind of expect the products or service you use to work when you receive them and deliver on the promise that you bought. The fourth step is when you establish your production quality issues tracking log. The log will help you track trends in the production process. By logging defect rate and tracking customer issues, you can quickly determine if your production process is helping you deliver on the promise made during the sales cycle. Without a plan tracking tool, you're not developing the organization discipline necessary to grow as you're only responding to anecdotal issues. Now, let's move on to the third deliverable in activity number 1, which is when you define the delivery process. The delivery process consists of 2 key steps. First off, you need to once again identify which product delivery model you'll use, direct or indirect. For the direct model, you'll take the following 5 key steps. Number 1, you'll identify your delivery costs in terms of labor and materials, which includes identifying the vendors for sourcing raw materials, as your delivery packaging may need these. Number 2, you'll identify any raw material lead times. Number 3, you'll develop your capital investment budget for each unit of delivery capacity. Number 4, you may need to revise your product margin per unit calculation if you're not able to pass along the delivery cost of your product to your customers. And number 5, similar to the production planning phase, you'll want to develop a cost and time reduction strategy per delivery unit. For the indirect model, you'll need to execute 4 steps. Number 1, you'll identify unit delivery costs in terms of labor and materials, which once again includes identifying vendors for sourcing raw materials. Number 2, you'll identify the raw material time lead times as necessary. Number 3, you'll calculate your product margin per unit. And number 4, you'll develop your cost and time reduction strategy per unit production. Now, the second step for this deliverable is when you define your post-delivery QA process. Here you're concerned with measuring the safe delivery of your product in the hands of your customer. Key measures are related to tracking and measuring any damage caused during transportation, as well as any damage caused due to packaging. You will log these issues to properly monitor and fix them. The last deliverable in the defined production and delivery process is to define the adoption process for your product or service. Using the user's product adoption journey, the portion, and this specifically the portion you're concerned with, starts after the product has been delivered and the user opens the box. With a pure digital solution, this is where the user first uses the app or views the news story or video, depending on what your startup focuses on. Now, if you're not familiar with the user's product adoption journey, we covered this in depth during the market validation phase of building your startup, but I'll cover some key elements of it here as well. To define the process, you'll ensure that the user is able to travel the user adoption journey easily and without encountering any issues that would derail or frustrate them. The adoption process starts when the user opens the box. At this point, your customer is concerned with how quickly they can start using your solution and whether they'll be able to easily access the value your product or service promises. The next concern your customer has relates to how self-evident it'll be to get your product or service working for them. Remember, we're no longer in the era of thick user manuals. We, as consumers, expect to be able to use a product or service quickly after purchasing it. For consumer products or services, you need to know, can the user experience the value that was promised within the first 5 minutes? For B2B products or services, it may take a little longer for the user, but it can't feel like forever. They have to feel like they're making progress along the way. Nearly just as important, how long will it take your customer to register the product to activate a warranty? You want your customer to know that you stand behind your solution and that you're there to address any issues that could come up. To support rapid improvement of your product or service, you must regularly survey new and existing users so you can help them provide you feedback on how the product is performing as they use it. Also, to support organic growth and reduce the cost of sales, you must make it easy for your customer to provide you feedback that can be easily shared on public sites. Even better, to reduce the cost of lead generation, you must make it easy for your customers to refer your product or service to their colleagues or friends. Remember, your satisfied customer will know others who can benefit from your solution, and their trusted referral shortens the buying process for new customers. The second activity in the production and delivery engine is when you validate the production and delivery process that you just defined. The first activity wasn't just a paper exercise like a business plan or financial projections. No, the validation activity helps you ensure that your instrumentation of the process is working, that you can understand any issues within the process, and that your process actually works. The validation activity requires you to instrument and validate each sub-process. Once again, you have 4 deliverables you need to accomplish, which map to the deliverables you just completed. So the first deliverable is to validate the production and planning process. You can only validate portions of the plan after you achieve critical milestones. For example, in the direct model, you'll need to set up your production facility and install all the necessary equipment to support production. Only after you've completed that and ordered your raw materials will you be able to validate the working capital budget as well as the capital investment budget. Whichever model you'll use, you'll also need to validate your cost reduction and production volume hypothesis. To measure the effectiveness of your cost reduction and production volume hypothesis, you'll track the variance between budget versus actual for both unit costs and unit volume trends. The variance trend will help you validate your hypothesis. You will look at what to do when you are unable to drive down costs and increase volume during the fatal flaw analysis later in this workshop. The next deliverable in the second activity of building your production and delivery engine is to validate the production process. Here you're trying to measure the unit production trend in a given time frame and the product defect rate in the same time frame. Your goal is to drive up unit volume while decreasing the defect rate. To validate the delivery process, you're going to measure the unit delivery cost and the missed on-time delivery rate. In both cases, you want to drive those metrics down. Finally, you'll want to validate the adoption process. Here, the metrics you're going to track are the product rating trend and the percentage of orders that get reviewed. The third activity to achieve the production and delivery engine milestone is to optimize your engine. By optimizing the production and delivery engine, you'll be confident that you can efficiently produce and deliver your product. Once again, you're using 4 similar deliverables comprising each of the sub-processes. When optimizing, your first focus is on speeding up the process. Once you've done that, you'll have a clear work plan that leads you to your second focus, which is decreasing your costs. Now, if you'd like to learn more about optimization strategies, we have some terrific tools for you to use in our Lean Mastery Incubator. Now, before continuing, I want to take a moment to acknowledge a pattern that you likely have recognized in how to build this engine. Yes, the pattern is related to how iterative the effort actually is. Imagine wanting to get to the top of a four-story building. Sure, you could try to parkour your way to the top, which is what most entrepreneurs seem to want to do. Why not? Looks fun, except for the falling part. Instead, the responsible way to get to your goal is to climb a ladder. Now, not only is it safer, but it's easier and quicker because you know the path you need to follow. Plus, you can easily measure your progress as you travel to reach your goal. The iterative nature of building your production and delivery engine is simply about climbing a ladder by safely completing each activity one step at a time. Now, before moving to the fatal flaw analysis for this milestone, during activity number 4, you'll analyze the results from these preceding activities by answering the following questions that tie to your OKRs. Those questions are, can I repeatedly produce and deliver my product? Can I monitor the performance of my production and delivery engine? Can I control the volume and cost of operating my production and delivery engine? Now, if you've answered yes to each of these 3 questions, then you'll proceed to the next milestone of the scale feasibility validated. To achieve the production and delivery engine built milestone, once again, it'll take approximately 2 months. So let's now look at how to fix the issues that when we cannot answer these questions in the affirmative by performing our fatal flaw analysis. If you're unfamiliar with the common fatal flaws for a startup, there are 5 of them related to your startup's key business assumptions. We covered all 5 fatal flaws during the market validation process. So during the repeatable sales and delivery startup development phase, we only focus on fatal flaws number 2 through 5, since fatal flaw number 1 only really comes up during market validation. This means that we need to perform a deeper level of fatal flaw analysis to reflect new information related to systematizing your key business functions. So to quickly review, the second fatal flaw relates to your lead engine, and your third fatal flaw relates to your sales engine. So this brings us to the fourth fatal flaw, when the value your solution delivers is not unique. Your product idea suffers from this fourth fatal flaw if you're unable to consistently produce and deliver a product with unique value. If your defect rate is above 10% with no effective means of lowering it, then your solution suffers from this flaw. The cause is usually related to either the process or the underlying technology being used to produce your product. When you fail this test condition with a product defect rate above 10%, then you will need to redesign the production process or your product to address quality and efficiency challenges. So on that note, let's return to our recent real-life example of a company that overcame this fatal flaw using exactly this corrective action. So going back to Tesla, when Tesla began to deliver its first Model 3s, famed automotive benchmarking veteran Sandy Munro was able to get his hands on one. See, Sandy is a teardown expert in that his firm will examine the production build for quality and cost by literally tearing down the product to its parts. Well, needless to say, Sandy's report was scathing and widely reported with the help of short sellers, of course. His key comment was, "I can't imagine how they released this." Well, the Tesla team was prepared, though, by implementing the corrective action for fatal flaw number 4. The first step that Elon Musk had taken was to merge leadership of his engineering and production teams to better respond to production defects and speed up implementation of necessary product design changes. The second step that Tesla took was to slow down deliveries to allow sufficient time for quality assurance testing during the production process as well as after final assembly. This meant managing customer expectations related to further delays while also tolerating unexpected costs related to rework when products failed the new quality assurance standards. The third step for Tesla was to keep communicating delivery status as it anticipated addressing its next problem related to delays in service and part supply. Taking those corrective actions wasn't easy, as Elon Musk was famously sleeping at the factory because he needed to devote all of his focus to take his company through production and delivery hell. But the results of taking these corrective actions paid off, as Sandy Munro performed a second teardown after design changes were implemented for the production process as well as with the Model 3's design itself. Sandy came away impressed by the quality improvements, along with the remarkable 30% profit margin that competing automakers could not match. So, in the end, Tesla made it through hell with its customer pre-orders intact, along with impressive customer adoption and retention results. Additionally, it had converted an important critic into a fan that turned his expertise into explaining why all of those short sellers were wrong, as they were intentionally using inaccurate data. The difference between success and failure in this story is that Tesla lives the lean startup approach to building its products, which was the intentionally designed into the company's culture by its founder, Elon Musk. Matter of fact, we can be confident that Elon possesses two superpowers that are directly related to his lean mastery, because we see these abilities replicated as other startups such as SpaceX, Hyperloop, OpenAI, Neuralink, The Boring Company, and Lord knows what else he's going to think of. By the way, these are all skills that he honed during his first startups of Zip2 and PayPal. So, what are the startup superpowers? Well, Elon's first superpower is his ability to understand who are his early adopters and the compelling problem those first customers want solved. His second superpower is his ability to understand what the first version of a solution needs to be to solve those early adopters' compelling problem and not to overreach for more. But here's the thing. Elon doesn't actually have superpowers, nor is he an alien. He's just a smart guy who has the wisdom to build lean startups, which is something any one of us can master. Because doing it any other way leads you to someplace worse than startup purgatory. Okay, during our next workshop, we're going to examine the fourth repeatable sales and delivery milestone, where you'll validate your scale hypothesis so as to ensure that your automated key activities are ready for sustainable growth when you scale your business operations, R&D processes, and support capabilities. We'll also identify the activities you need to perform and the tools you'll use so you can efficiently complete this final milestone of the repeatable sales and delivery phase. Now, if you're looking to change how you grow your startup by building lean, and you find these episodes helpful, please subscribe to this YouTube channel and click the notification button, as well as give us a like or drop a positive comment. Also, if you know of other founders or product managers who could benefit from our workshops, please share this video with them so they too can build their startups lean and avoid mistakes that cost time and money. Building Lean is brought to you by the Lean Mastery Incubator. Unlike other incubators or accelerators that rush you to pitch to investors, whether you're ready or not, Lean Mastery guides you in building key business functions that turn up revenues fast, which puts you in the best position to successfully raise money and outrun your competition. Learn more about how you can become a Lean Mastery Incubator member at leanmastery.co. Thank you all for watching, and remember, don't let anyone knock you off from achieving your dream, as we believe you can do it, and we're here with you every step along the way to help you build lean.